In the world of late-night television, where jokes fly fast and debates get heated, there's always something unexpected waiting to happen. On one such evening, comedian Biil Maher, known for his sharp humor and bold opinions, welcomed a guest, who would soon become the center of a national conversation. Her name was Jasmine Crockett, a U.S. representative making waves in Congress with her fearless speeches and strong advocacy for people who often feel left behind. The stage was set. The audience buzzed with anticipation as the cameras rolled. Everyone expected a lively discussion about important topics like policy reform, racial justice, and economic inequality, issues that were close to Reverend Crockett's heart. But what unfolded next was something no one saw coming. It wasn't just another political debate. It turned into a moment that grabbed the attention of millions across the country. As the conversation began, things seemed normal at first. Maher asked questions, and Representative Crockett answered them confidently, sharing her views on how to make America fairer for everyone. She spoke passionately about creating opportunities for marginalized communities and ensuring equal rights for all. The audience listened intently, nodding along as she painted a picture of hope and progress. But then the tone shifted. The topic moved toward immigration and diversity, areas where opinions are often divided. That's when Maher said something shocking. In an attempt to be funny, or maybe without thinking twice, he made a comment that stopped the room cold. "Maybe you should go back to Africa," he said casually, almost as if it were just another punchline in his routine. The words hit hard. They weren't just offensive. They carried centuries of pain and exclusion. For many Black Americans, phrases like this have long been used to dismiss their contributions, question their belonging, and strip away their identity. And here it was, spoken aloud on live TV by someone with millions watching. For a brief moment, time seemed to freeze. The studio fell silent except for a few gasps from the audience. Cameras panned between Maher, who looked momentarily pleased with himself, and Reverend Crockett, whose face gave nothing away. No anger, no shock, just calm determination. It was clear that whatever happened next would define not only this episode, but also the legacy of both individuals involved. Viewers at home leaned closer to their screens, holding their breath. Social media erupted instantly, with people reacting in real time. Some were outraged, calling Maher's comment racist and unacceptable. Others defended him, saying it was just a joke and people were overreacting. But amidst the chaos, all eyes were on Reverend Crockett. How would she respond? Would she lash out, or walk off the stage? Or would she handle it differently? Instead of reacting impulsively, she took a deep breath. Then, looking straight at Maher, she said calmly, "Bill, let's talk about why you said that, and why it matters." With those simple words, she turned the tables. What could have been a shouting match became a moment of reflection. She explained how comments like "go back to Africa" aren't harmless jokes. They carry history, hurt, and hostility. Her voice was steady, her points clear. She didn't raise it or show frustration, yet every word landed like a hammer. The audience, once restless, grew quiet again, hanging on to her every sentence. Even Maher seemed taken aback, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. By the time the segment ended, jaws had dropped, not just in the studio but across living rooms nationwide. Within minutes, clips of the exchange flooded social media platforms. People shared, commented, and debated furiously. Some praised Reverend Crockett for her composure and intelligence, while others criticized Maher for crossing a line. Whatever side people stood on, one thing was undeniable. This moment had sparked a firestorm that wouldn't die down anytime soon. What started as a regular episode of a popular talk show had transformed into something much bigger. It wasn't just about two people anymore. It was about race, representation, and respect in America. And as the story continued to unfold, it became clear that this was only the beginning of a larger conversation that would captivate the nation. The silence that followed Maher's comment was deafening. It wasn't just the kind of quiet you get when someone drops a glass or says something awkward at a party. It was heavier, more charged. You could feel it in the air. The audience, who had been laughing and clapping moments before, suddenly seemed unsure of what to do. Some people shifted in their seats, others exchanged glances, and a few even covered their mouths in disbelief. Cameras zoomed in on Reper Crockett's face, trying to capture her reaction, but she remained still. Her expression didn't change, no frown, no raised eyebrows, nothing. If anything, she looked like she was thinking deeply. For a moment, everyone wondered, what happens now? Would she storm off the stage? Would she fire back with anger? Or would she ignore the comment and move on? The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then slowly, almost deliberately, she leaned forward in her chair. She looked directly at Maher, not with rage, but with a calm intensity that made him pause. "Bill," she began, her voice steady and clear, "I think we need to talk about why you said that, and why it matters." Her words hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. There was no yelling, no dramatic gestures, just a simple statement that stopped everyone in their tracks. For a second, it felt like the entire world held its breath. Even Maher, who was usually quick with a comeback, seemed caught off guard. He blinked, his smirk fading slightly as he realized this wasn't going to be brushed aside as easily as he might have hoped. Reper Crockett didn't stop there. She went on to explain, patiently and thoughtfully, why comments like, "Go back to Africa" carry so much weight. She talked about history, the painful legacy of slavery, segregation, and systemic racism that has shaped the lives of Black Americans for generations. She reminded everyone that phrases like these aren't just careless jokes. They're rooted in exclusion and hostility. They tell people, whether intentionally or not, that they don't belong, that their presence is somehow less valid than others. As she spoke, her tone never wavered. She didn't raise her voice or point fingers, but every word carried meaning. She wasn't just addressing Maher. She was speaking to the millions of people watching at home, many of whom might not fully understand the impact of such language. And while some in the audience nodded along, others looked uncomfortable, maybe even guilty. It was as if she had turned the spotlight inward, forcing everyone to confront their own biases and assumptions. Maher, meanwhile, looked increasingly uneasy. At first he tried to laugh it off, offering a weak chuckle and leaning back in his chair like he was hoping the moment would pass quickly. But Rep Crockett kept going, dismantling his attempt at humor piece by piece. She explained how words like these are used to dismiss and demean, reducing complex identities to stereotypes. By the time she finished, the energy in the room had shifted completely. What started as a light-hearted interview had become a profound lesson in empathy and understanding. When the segment ended, the audience erupted into applause, not the polite kind you hear after a joke lands, but the kind that comes from genuine respect and admiration. People stood up, clapping loudly as if to say, "Thank you for standing up and saying what needed to be said." Reper Crockett smiled briefly, acknowledging the support, but her expression remained serious. She knew this wasn't just about one man's comment. It was about a much bigger issue that couldn't be resolved in a single conversation. Outside the studio, the reaction was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, clips of the exchange were everywhere. Social media platforms lit up with hashtags like "respect and dignity" and "Yash words matter." People shared their thoughts, their frustrations, and their gratitude for Reper Crockett's response. Some recounted personal stories of being told to go back to places they'd never lived in, highlighting how hurtful and alienating those words can be. Others praised her for handling the situation with grace and intelligence, turning what could have been a hostile confrontation into a teachable moment. Of course, not everyone agreed. Some defended Maher, arguing that his comment was meant as a joke and shouldn't be taken so seriously. They accused Reper Crockett of overreacting or using the moment to gain attention. But for every critic, there were dozens of supporters who pushed back, pointing out the deeper implications of such language and the importance of holding public figures accountable. By the next morning, the story had taken on a life of its own. News outlets across the country covered the incident, analyzing every angle. Talk shows debated whether Maher's comment was offensive or harmless, Radio hosts invited callers to share their opinions, sparking heated discussions that lasted for hours. Even late-night comedians weighed in, some mocking Maher for his misstep, while others commended Rapper Crockett for her poise under pressure. Meanwhile, Rapper Crockett herself stayed focused. In interviews the following day, she reiterated her stance, emphasizing that this wasn't about targeting one person. It was about challenging harmful narratives and creating space for honest dialogue. She encouraged people to reflect on their own words and actions, reminding them that small choices can have big consequences. Her message resonated deeply, earning her widespread praise and solidifying her reputation as a leader unafraid to tackle tough issues head-on. Back in the studio, Maher seemed to realize he was in hot water. As the backlash grew, he tried to downplay the situation, insisting his comment was misunderstood and not intended to offend. But his explanation fell flat for many viewers, especially those who understood the historical context behind such remarks. Calls for accountability intensified, with some sponsors pulling their ads from his show and petitions circulating online demanding action. Through it all, Rapper Crockett remained composed. She didn't fuel the fire or engage in petty arguments. Instead, she channeled the moment into an opportunity for growth and education. She reminded everyone that progress isn't always easy. It requires uncomfortable conversations and a willingness to listen. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be bumpy, her response proved that resilience and dignity can shine even in the darkest moments. This single interaction became more than just a viral clip. It sparked a national conversation about race, identity, and belonging. It challenged people to examine their own beliefs and consider the impact of their words. And most importantly, it showed that even in the face of adversity, courage and clarity can inspire change. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the fallout from the incident had already taken on a life of its own. It wasn't just a late-night talk show moment anymore. It was everywhere. News channels dissected every second of the exchange. Social media feeds were flooded with reactions, and conversations spilled into offices, classrooms, and family dinners. The phrase "go back to Africa" became a lightning rod for discussions about race, identity, and respect in America. For Rapper Crockett, the day started early. Her phone buzzed nonstop with notifications, messages of support, interview requests, and countless shares of her calm yet powerful response. People praised her for not losing her cool, for turning what could have been a hurtful moment into an opportunity for education. But she didn't let the attention distract her. Instead, she used it as fuel to keep pushing forward. She appeared on morning shows, gave interviews to major newspapers, and even posted a heartfelt message on her social media accounts. "I'm not here to shame anyone," she said in one interview. "I'm here to remind us all that our words matter. They carry history, they carry pain, and they can either build bridges or burn them down. We have a choice." Her message struck a chord with millions. Viewers who had never paid much attention to politics before found themselves tuning in to hear more from her. Parents played clips of her response to their kids, using it as a teaching moment about empathy and understanding. Teachers brought it up in class discussions, encouraging students to think critically about language and its impact. Even people who initially defended Maher began to reconsider their stance after hearing her thoughtful explanation. But while Rapper Crockett's star continued to rise, the same couldn't be said for Biil Maher. As the backlash intensified, his reputation took a hit. Sponsors who had once been eager to associate their brands with his edgy humor started pulling out. One by one, companies issued statements distancing themselves from the controversy, citing concerns over offensive language and its potential harm. Advertisements that usually filled commercial breaks during real time dwindled, leaving awkward gaps where jokes and banter used to flow freely. Maher tried to address the situation, but his attempts only seemed to dig him deeper. In a brief statement released online, he claimed his comment was just a joke and accused critics of being too sensitive. "People need to lighten up," he said. "It's comedy. It's not supposed to be taken so seriously." But for many, this explanation felt dismissive. Critics argued that jokes don't exist in a vacuum. They're shaped by context, history, and power dynamics. To say something is just a joke ignores the weight it carries, especially when it reinforces harmful stereotypes. For Blacks, Americans, phrases like, "go back to Africa," aren't new. They've been weaponized for generations to deny belonging and perpetuate exclusion. Maher's defense came across as tone-deaf, further alienating those who expected better from someone with such a prominent platform. As the days went on, the pressure mounted. Progressive leaders called for accountability, demanding both Maher and HBO take responsibility for allowing such language to air unchecked. Petitions urging the network to cancel Real-Time gained traction, with thousands signing on within hours. Some viewers canceled their subscriptions altogether, vowing to boycott until meaningful action was taken. Meanwhile, conservative commentators rallied behind Maher, accusing his critics of trying to silence free speech. They argued that holding comedians accountable for every controversial remark would stifle creativity and humor. Caught in the middle were everyday people, grappling with conflicting emotions. Some felt sympathy for Maher, believing he didn't deserve the level of backlash he received. Others saw this as a long overdue reckoning, pointing out that public figures have a responsibility to consider the consequences of their words. Social media threads turned into virtual battlegrounds with debates raging late into the night. Memes, GIFs, and parody videos popped up, adding another layer to the cultural firestorm. Amidst the chaos, Jasmine Crockett remained steadfast. She refused to engage in mudslinging or personal attacks, focusing instead on the bigger picture. In interviews, she emphasized that this wasn't about punishing Maher, it was about fostering understanding. "We can't move forward if we're stuck pointing fingers," she said. "What I want is for people to reflect on why these kinds of comments still happen and how we can do better." Her approach earned her even more admiration. Supporters marveled at her ability to rise above the noise, to stay composed when others might have lashed out. She became a symbol of resilience, proof that strength doesn't always look like anger. It can also look like grace under pressure. Her story inspired countless individuals to speak up against injustice in their own lives, whether it was calling out microaggressions at work or challenging biased remarks among friends. Back at HBO, executives scrambled to figure out their next move. Canceling Real-Time outright seemed drastic, given its popularity and longevity, but ignoring the controversy entirely risked alienating viewers and sponsors alike. After days of internal deliberation, they announced a special episode dedicated to addressing the fallout. Maher would sit down with Jasmine Crockett again, not to rehash the argument but to continue the conversation in a constructive way. The announcement drew mixed reactions. Some saw it as a step toward reconciliation, while others dismissed it as a publicity stunt designed to save face. Regardless of intentions, anticipation built rapidly. Would Maher apologize sincerely, or would he double down on his initial stance? How would Jasmine Crockett respond? Could two people with such different perspectives find common ground? Audiences tuned in by the millions, eager to see how the story would unfold. Behind the scenes, preparations were intense. Both parties reportedly met beforehand to discuss the tone and direction of the conversation. Maher, known for his quick wit and sharp tongue, agreed to listen more than he spoke, a rare concession for someone accustomed to dominating discussions. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, prepared meticulously, gathering examples and anecdotes to illustrate her points without resorting to hostility. When the cameras finally rolled, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Maher opened the segment by acknowledging the harm caused by his words. "I realize now that my comment was insensitive and rooted in ignorance," he admitted. "It wasn't my intention to offend, but that doesn't excuse it. I'm sorry." His apology, though far from perfect, marked a shift. For the first time, he seemed genuinely reflective, willing to confront his blind spots rather than deflect blame. Jasmine Crockett nodded, accepting his apology not because it erased the past, but because it signaled a willingness to grow. "Apologies are important," she said, "but actions matter more. Let's use this moment to learn and do better." The rest of the episode unfolded as a candid dialogue, with both participants sharing their perspectives openly. They tackled Tough questions about privilege, accountability, and the role of humor in society. While disagreements lingered, there was a mutual effort to understand each other's viewpoints, an outcome few had anticipated. By the end of the broadcast, reactions were mixed but leaning positive. Some viewers appreciated the attempt at resolution, seeing it as a model for navigating difficult conversations. Others remained skeptical, questioning whether Maher's apology was sincere or simply strategic. Regardless, the episode reignited discussions about forgiveness, growth, and the possibility of finding common ground, even in moments of conflict. For Reppers Crockett, the experience reinforced her belief in the power of dialogue. She knew change wouldn't happen overnight, but she also knew that every step forward mattered. And for Maher, it served as a humbling reminder of the reach and responsibility that come with a public platform. Together, they proved that even in the most divisive moments, humanity has the capacity to surprise us and inspire us with acts of courage and compassion. The ripple effects of the exchange between Biil Maher and Reppers Jasmine Crockett didn't stop at talk shows or social media debates. It spread far beyond, touching lives in ways no one could have predicted. What began as a single comment on national television turned into a nationwide dialogue about race, identity, and what it truly means to belong in America. Schools held assemblies to discuss the incident. Workplaces organized diversity training sessions, and community groups gathered for open forums. People were talking, not just about the two individuals involved, but about themselves, their histories, and how they interact with others. Jasmine Crockett became the face of this movement, not because she sought the spotlight, but because her response resonated so deeply. Her calm demeanor and thoughtful explanation of why certain words carry weight struck a chord with millions. She wasn't just speaking to Biil Maher, she was speaking to anyone who has ever felt dismissed, excluded, or othered. And that included a lot of people. In interviews and public appearances, she continued to drive home the message that small moments can spark big changes. "This isn't about me," she said during an appearance on a popular morning show. "It's about all of us learning to see each other more clearly. Words matter. They shape how we think, how we act, and how we treat one another. If we want to build a better future, we need to start by choosing our words carefully." Her words inspired action. Teachers used her response as a case study in classrooms, encouraging students to reflect on the language they use daily. Parents sat down with their kids to explain why phrases like "go back to where you came from" are hurtful, regardless of intent. Even corporations took notice, hosting workshops on cultural sensitivity and unconscious bias. It seemed like everywhere you looked, people were having conversations they might have avoided before. For many Black Americans, the incident brought up painful memories. Social media became a platform for sharing personal stories. Stories of being told they didn't belong, of being treated as outsiders in their own country. One person posted about being asked, "Where are you really from?" despite being born and raised in the U.S. Another shared how they'd been called names in school because of the color of their skin. These stories weren't new, but seeing them side by side made the impact undeniable. It reminded everyone that racism isn't always loud or obvious. It often hides in subtle comments and assumptions. Biil Maher, meanwhile, found himself navigating uncharted territory. For years, he had built his career on pushing boundaries, saying things others wouldn't dare to say. His humor thrived on edginess, on walking the line between clever and controversial. But now, that same style of comedy had landed him in hot water. He couldn't ignore the backlash. It was everywhere. Viewers canceled subscriptions, sponsors pulled ads, and critics demanded accountability. The pressure forced him to confront something he hadn't faced before, the real-world consequences of his jokes. At first, Maher struggled to adapt. In private conversations with friends, he reportedly expressed frustration, feeling like he was being unfairly targeted. Publicly, however, he tried to strike a balance. He acknowledged the harm his words caused, but also defended his right to make mistakes. "Comedy is supposed to challenge people," he said in an interview. But I'm realizing now that there's a difference between challenging ideas and hurting people. I crossed that line, and I regret it. His apology, though imperfect, marked a turning point. It wasn't the kind of performative apology designed to quell outrage. It felt genuine, even if it came after days of resistance. Maher admitted he had underestimated the historical weight of his comment and promised to educate himself further. He even invited experts on race and culture to appear on his show, signaling a willingness to listen and learn. Still, not everyone was ready to forgive. Critics argued that Maher's history of provocative remarks showed a pattern, not an isolated misstep. They pointed out that accountability requires more than just saying sorry. It demands consistent effort to change behavior. Supporters, on the other hand, praised him for owning up to his mistake, arguing that everyone deserves a chance to grow. Amidst the polarized reactions, Crockett stood firm in her mission. She didn't focus on whether Maher deserved forgiveness or punishment. Instead, she kept steering the conversation toward progress. During a town hall event, she addressed a packed auditorium, urging attendees to channel their energy into meaningful action. "We can't change the past," she said, "but we can shape the future. Let's take this moment and turn it into something positive, something that brings us closer together." Her optimism was infectious. Community leaders across the country followed her lead, organizing initiatives aimed at fostering understanding. Some cities launched campaigns to celebrate diversity, highlighting the contributions of immigrants and minorities. Others created safe spaces for people to share their experiences and connect with neighbors from different backgrounds. The goal was simple: to remind everyone that America is stronger when it embraces its differences rather than fearing them. Even celebrities and politicians joined the effort, lending their voices to the cause. A famous actor posted a video explaining why language matters, while a senator introduced legislation to promote inclusivity in schools. These actions may have seemed small individually, but collectively, they added momentum to the movement sparked by Crockett's response. As weeks turned into months, the conversation evolved. It wasn't just about one TV host or one politician anymore. It was about redefining how society approaches issues of race and belonging. People started paying closer attention to the words they used, questioning whether their jokes might unintentionally harm someone else. Conversations that once felt taboo became more common, creating opportunities for growth and healing. For Crockett, the experience reinforced her belief in the power of resilience. She knew that standing up to injustice wouldn't always be easy, but she also knew it was worth it. Every interview, every speech, every interaction gave her a chance to inspire others to do the same. And while the road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, she remained hopeful. "It's not going to happen overnight," she said during a panel discussion. "Change takes time, patience, and courage. But if we keep showing up, keep listening, and keep pushing forward, we'll get there. Together." By the end of it all, the story of Biil Maher and Jasmine Crockett had transcended its origins. It wasn't just a moment of conflict or controversy, it was a catalyst for transformation. It reminded everyone that even in the most divisive times, there's room for reflection, for growth, and for unity. And perhaps most importantly, it proved that one person's courage can ignite a chain reaction, inspiring countless others to join the fight for a fairer, kinder world. The special episode of Real Time featuring Biil Maher and Jasmine Crockett aired on a Friday night, drawing record-breaking viewership. People tuned in from all corners of the country, not just fans of the show, but skeptics, critics, and curious onlookers eager to see how this highly anticipated reunion would unfold. The stakes were high and the atmosphere was electric. Would Maher's apology feel genuine? Would Crockett accept it? Or would the tension between them boil over into another heated exchange? When the cameras rolled, the energy in the studio was palpable. The audience, usually quick to laugh or cheer, sat unusually quiet, hanging onto every word. Maher opened the segment with a deep breath, looking directly at Crockett as he began to speak. "I want to start by saying I'm sorry," he said. his tone uncharacteristically serious. What I said wasn't just a poor choice of words, it was hurtful, and it reinforced harmful stereotypes that have no place in our society. That's not who I want to be, and it's not what my show should stand for. For a moment, the room was silent. No clapping, no murmurs, just stillness. Then, slowly, Jasmine Crockett nodded. She didn't rush to respond. Instead, she took a moment to process his words before speaking. "Thank you for apologizing," she said finally, her voice calm but firm. "Apologies are important. They show accountability. But more than anything, I hope this moment encourages us all to think about why these kinds of comments happen in the first place and how we can prevent them moving forward." Her response was measured, thoughtful, and devoid of bitterness. It set the tone for the rest of the conversation, a sincere effort to bridge the gap between two very different perspectives. Maher, often known for dominating discussions with sharp wit, surprised everyone by taking a step back. He listened intently as Jasmine Crockett explained the deeper implications of language and bias, nodding along as she spoke. At one point, she shared a story about a constituent who had approached her after the incident. The man, an immigrant from Nigeria, told her how phrases like "go back to Africa" had haunted him throughout his life. He said it made him feel invisible, like his contributions didn't matter, she recounted. And that's the thing. We're not just talking about words here, we're talking about people's lives, their dignity, their sense of belonging. Maher looked visibly moved, his usual bravado replaced by a rare vulnerability. "I never thought about it that way," he admitted. "When I said it, I honestly didn't mean any harm. But now I see how wrong I was. Ignorance isn't an excuse, it's a wake-up call." As the conversation continued, the dynamic shifted. What could have been a defensive back and forth became something else entirely. A raw, honest dialogue about privilege, empathy, and the responsibility that comes with having a platform. Maher acknowledged that as a white man in America, he hadn't always considered the weight of certain remarks because they didn't affect him personally. Jasmine Crockett, in turn, emphasized the importance of listening to marginalized voices and learning from their experiences. "You don't have to agree with someone to understand where they're coming from," she said. "It's okay to make mistakes, we all do. What matters is what you do after you realize you've messed up. Do you double down, or do you try to grow?" By the end of the episode, the mood had transformed. The audience erupted into applause, not out of obligation but out of genuine appreciation for the effort both parties had made to find common ground. Viewers at home reacted similarly, flooding social media with messages of support for the constructive approach. Some praised Maher for owning his mistake, while others commended Jasmine Crockett for modeling grace under pressure. For many, the episode served as a reminder that difficult conversations, when handled with care, can lead to understanding and even reconciliation. Of course, not everyone was satisfied. Critics argued that Maher's apology came too late, and that his history of controversial remarks couldn't be erased with a single heartfelt statement. Others questioned whether inviting Jasmine Crockett back onto the show was merely a calculated move to repair his image rather than a genuine attempt at accountability. These concerns weren't unfounded, but they also highlighted the complexities of forgiveness and redemption in the public eye. Despite the mixed reactions, the episode marked a turning point, for Maher, for Jasmine Crockett, and for the broader cultural conversation. Maher seemed genuinely humbled, acknowledging that he had much to learn about the impact of his words. In subsequent episodes of Real Time, he began incorporating segments focused on racial justice and equity, inviting experts and activists to share their insights. While some dismissed these efforts as performative, others saw them as a step in the right direction, a sign that he was willing to use his platform for good. Jasmine Crockett, meanwhile, emerged stronger than ever. Her handling of the situation earned her widespread admiration, solidifying her reputation as a leader who prioritizes education over retaliation. She continued to champion causes close to her heart, using her growing influence to advocate for policies that uplift marginalized communities. Whether addressing Congress, speaking at rallies, or engaging with constituents, she carried the same poise and determination that had captivated audiences during her appearance on Real Time. Beyond the individuals involved, the incident sparked lasting change in unexpected ways. Schools incorporated the episode into lesson plans, teaching students about the power of language and the importance of empathy. Corporations revisited their diversity initiatives, ensuring they went beyond surface-level solutions to address systemic issues. Even casual conversations among friends and family reflected a newfound awareness of the need to choose words carefully. Perhaps most significantly, the event reminded people of the potential for growth, even in moments of conflict. It showed that while apologies are important, actions speak louder, and it proved that when two people come together with open hearts and minds, they can inspire millions to do the same. As the weeks passed, the headlines eventually faded, but the lessons lingered. The story of Biil Maher and rapper Jasmine Crockett became more than just a fleeting controversy. It became a symbol of resilience, accountability, and the enduring power of dialogue. It challenged everyone to reflect on their own roles in shaping a fairer, kinder world. And though the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, it offered a glimmer of hope. That even in the face of division, connection is possible. One courageous conversation at a time. Months after the incident, the story of Biil Maher and rapper Jasmine Crockett had transformed from a fleeting controversy into something far more profound, a testament to the power of resilience, accountability, and the human capacity for growth. The exchange that began with hurtful words ended with lessons that reached far beyond the two individuals involved. It sparked conversations in homes, workplaces, schools, and communities across America, reminding everyone that even in moments of conflict, there's always room for understanding. Rapper Crockett emerged from the ordeal stronger than ever. Her calm yet firm response to Maher's comment became a blueprint for how to confront injustice without resorting to anger or hostility. People admired her ability to turn a painful moment into an opportunity for education, inspiring countless others to follow her lead. She didn't seek revenge or demand punishment. Instead, she focused on fostering empathy and creating space for honest dialogue. That approach resonated deeply, earning her widespread respect and admiration. Her influence grew exponentially. Invitations poured in from all corners, from universities asking her to deliver keynote speeches to community organizations seeking her guidance on equity and inclusion. Wherever she went, she carried the same message. Progress isn't about perfection, it's about effort. We're all learning, she often said. None of us has all the answers, but if we commit to listening, reflecting, and growing, we can build a better future together. For many, her journey was a source of hope. Parents shared clips of her interviews with their children, using them as teaching tools to explain why kindness matters. Teachers incorporated her story into lesson plans, encouraging students to think critically about the impact of their words. Even corporations took note, revamping their diversity training programs to emphasize the importance of empathy and accountability. Rapper Crockett's actions reminded everyone that leadership isn't just about holding titles, it's about inspiring change through action. As for Biil Maher, the experience marked a turning point in his career. For years, he had thrived on edgy humor, pushing boundaries and challenging societal norms. But this time, he pushed too far, and it forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and his role in shaping public discourse. His apology may not have satisfied everyone, but it signaled a willingness to grow, a quality many hadn't expected from him. In the months following the incident, Maher made noticeable changes to his show. He invited experts, activists, and thought leaders to discuss issues like racial justice, systemic inequality, and cultural sensitivity, topics he might have avoided before. Some critics dismissed these efforts as performative, accusing him of trying to salvage his reputation rather than genuinely addressing his blind spots. But others saw them as steps in the right direction, acknowledging that meaningful change takes time. Maher also became more introspective in his comedy. While he still delivered sharp commentary, he seemed more mindful of the weight his words carried. In one episode, he reflected on the incident, admitting that it had fundamentally altered how he approached his craft. "I used to think being funny meant saying whatever popped into my head," he confessed. But now I realize that humor comes with responsibility. You can challenge people without hurting them, if you're willing to put in the work. The ripple effects of the incident extended far beyond the two individuals at its center. Across the country, people found themselves rethinking their own behaviors and attitudes. Conversations that once felt taboo became more common, creating opportunities for connection and understanding. Friends sat down over coffee to talk about privilege and bias. Colleagues organized workshops to address microaggressions in the workplace. Neighbors came together to celebrate diversity, sharing stories and traditions that highlighted the richness of their communities. Schools played a particularly important role in keeping the conversation alive. Teachers used the incident as a case study, helping students understand the historical context behind phrases like, "Go back to Africa." They encouraged kids to reflect on their own language, asking questions like, "How would you feel if someone said that to you?" These discussions weren't always easy, but they were necessary. They taught young people the value of empathy and the importance of standing up against injustice, even when it's uncomfortable. Even celebrities and politicians joined the movement, amplifying the message in their own ways. A famous actor spoke candidly about the impact of harmful stereotypes in Hollywood, while a senator introduced legislation aimed at promoting inclusivity in education. These efforts may have seemed small individually, but collectively, they added momentum to the wave of change sparked by Rep. Crockett's response. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the entire saga was how it brought people together. Despite differing opinions and backgrounds, millions rallied around a shared goal, creating a world where everyone feels seen, heard, and valued. It wasn't easy. There were disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments of frustration along the way. But through it all, people kept showing up, listening, and learning. By the end of the year, the story of Biil Maher and Rep. Jasmine Crockett had become a symbol of possibility. It proved that even in the most divisive times, humanity has the capacity to surprise us, with acts of courage, compassion, and resilience. It reminded everyone that while words can wound, they can also heal. And it showed that when we choose empathy over indifference, connection over division, we can create ripples of change that extend far beyond what we imagine. Rep. Crockett summed it up best during a speech at a national conference. "This isn't just about me or Biil Maher," she said. "It's about all of us. We're writing the story of our generation every day, with our words, our actions, and our choices. Let's make it one worth telling." And so, the legacy of that single moment on live television lived on, not as a tale of conflict, but as a beacon of hope. It challenged everyone to be better, to do better, and to believe in the power of second chances. Because in the end, it's not just about where we start, it's about where we choose to go from there.